Hey, what's up, guys? It's Brando with Brando Sports World here today, and today we're doing team number 50 of my top 50 college football teams of the 2023 football season. And today we are doing team number 50, the Iowa State Cyclones out of the Big 12 Conference. Now, when you think of the Iowa State Cyclones, you immediately think of Matt Campbell, a type of coach that's been very mediocre almost since he had gotten there. Now, granted, he had a couple good seasons, but the reason for those seasons were actually because of Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. Now, they had a dynamic offense at one time, and ever since they lost them this last year, they went to a 4-8 record, and that's what they ended up with in 2022. So today we're going to find out exactly how they're going to do this year for 2023. Their best win last year was at Iowa, which was a pretty good win. However, Iowa's offense was absolutely horrific, and their defense was very, very stout. Now, don't get it wrong, that was a good win, and making it 4-8 just didn't quite cut it and make it to a bowl game. So they suffered a lot of close losses, and that was also basically how you would sum up their season, with several of those games being really close. So it could have been a turn of the die, and that 4-8 could have easily been a 6-6 to make them bowl eligible. Now, this goal for this year should absolutely be bowl eligible. Otherwise, they should really consider looking at firing Matt Campbell. Now, I know the history with Iowa State hasn't quite been necessarily glorified. It's not a blue blood by any means, and they don't have much of a history of success. And Matt Campbell has given them some success. But moving forward with the uncertainty of the Big 12 and how things are going right now, you might want to consider looking into someone else, different coach or something that's going to get you over that top to start winning 7-8 wins every year or more. I mean, we need to start shooting for Big 12 titles or getting into that side of that conference to win that championship. So let's see here. We'll go ahead and just get started into it. The first game of the season is against Northern Iowa. It is a home game, and I have you guys easily winning that game, and I have the winning record to be 28-17 for that game. I don't see them giving you too many issues. Now, the very next week, you do play another Iowa team, the infamous Iowa Hawkeyes, the bane of your existence, and one of my least favorite teams. And though you did end up winning last year, I think that this game, you end up losing it 17-13. I think it's going to be a close game, and it could also be a toss-up, but I think that now with Iowa getting that new quarterback in that transferred in from Michigan, Cade McNamara, I think it's going to make a big difference for them in their offense. And I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters, but I do think they are going to show much more improvement. And if not, Iowa might be looking for a different offensive coordinator too, even if it is your favorite coach's son. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, though, Cade McNamara can sling it, and I think he's far superior than Nate Stanley was or Spencer Petras. They've just had those history of those tall statue quarterbacks, and that offensive line for Iowa wasn't holding up too well last year. But yes, I do have Iowa, unfortunately, winning this game in a close one. And heading into week 3, it's an away game at Ohio. I don't think that this will be a hard matchup for you guys at all. Frank Solich was coaching there for a few years. A couple years ago, of course, but Ohio hasn't been the same since he had left, and I think that you guys are definitely the far superior team. I think Matt Campbell is a better coach than their Ohio's current coach, and I think you guys win that game handily, 34-14. The following week is a tough game against Oklahoma State. It is a home game, but you know Gundy, he's going to have that team ready to rock and roll, and every few years he ends up doing quite well for himself, and they overachieve than what people would probably give them credit for. And I don't know if the national media would suggest that Oklahoma State's a very incredibly talented team, but they do have the coach in Gundy that can get it done. And I think that this is a game where you end up losing 27-21 in a close one. Oklahoma State just looks to be a little bit more improved than they were last year, and I don't think you guys are going to improve too much in that regard. So I have you losing another game, going 2-2 on the season. The very next game doesn't get any easier, though. It's an away game at Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma did have their new coach last year, from the defensive coordinator from Clemson. Oklahoma didn't have the type of season they wanted. I do think Oklahoma will be much more improved this year, and I think it'll definitely show on this scoreboard particularly, and I think they're going to win 31-17, and it doesn't help that you guys are playing away in Norman, too. So, going into the next week, it's a game against TCU, the old national championship contenders from last year. Sonny Dykes had those guys overperforming than what anybody would have seen coming. I don't know anyone that would have predicted them to even make the championship game, let alone make it to the Big 12 championship. So, anyways, I actually think that you guys overpower them in an evenly matched game, and I think you guys are going to upset TCU, if you want to call it an upset. And I think you win 28-27, and it kind of saves your season at this point because you had 2 losses back to back, and that kind of pulls you back in. So the very next week, we have a game against Cincinnati. It's a home game. Obviously, Cincinnati had lost Luke Fickell to Wisconsin, which is going to be interesting for those guys. And that's another video, too, of course. But I just don't think Cincinnati is going to be that same team. And I think under his leadership, that's what kind of catapulted them to, well, they made the not the national championship, but they did make it to the college football playoffs, ended up losing to Alabama a couple years ago. So that's just not even near to the same level or the same team that they currently are going to be at this year. And I think you actually handle them quite well, winning that game 31-14. And suddenly you guys have 4 wins and 3 losses, and you guys are on par with kind of the baseline of where Iowa State would typically be at, in my opinion. So the very next week, it's an away game at Baylor. I think that coach there, name escapes me at the moment, but that coach there, I know he had gotten hired from LSU. Dave Aranda, he ended up getting hired, and I know his background is defense. And they really didn't have that great of an offense last year, and in some regards, their defense was just kind of questionable too. But I think that he's a great coach. I think he's hired some new assistants that are really going to get that program going. And I think ultimately Baylor just was going to have a little bit more firepower on offense that I don't think you guys have. And I think you guys had lost your top wide receiver, was it Hutchinson? He transferred out. And I think that's going to be kind of noticeable come game day. And this would be a good example of when you'd like to have Hutchinson, just because I don't think that you guys have that same type of firepower. And I think Baylor wins that game 34-21. The very next week is a game against Kansas. Lance Leopold, coach from, Wisconsin Whitewater, won all those national championships in that Division 3, Division 2, Division 3, doesn't matter. He really made Kansas actually look like a contender, especially at the beginning of last season. I mean, nobody can definitely argue that. He made them a contender, gave them opportunities to win. He found a lot of success. He didn't quite make it and do as well towards the second half of the season, but you could see what they're building there, and I think that that's going to be tough to overcome because I think they actually do improve, and that's crazy to think that Kansas Jayhawks, a basketball school, is improving as much as they are. But I do think it happens. I think he's got them on the right track, and I think that they just barely, and I mean barely, edge out a close win against you guys, and that's what's going to make the difference there. Just with Kansas maybe taking that extra step up on offense. I know their offense, especially at the beginning of the season, was really dynamic and fun to watch. Just a little different types of sets that the other teams are using. So just a close loss for you guys. Now, we get another opportunity here, though. It's an away game the next week at BYU. BYU, I'm pretty high on this year. I like what their coach is doing down there in the Mormon Islands, if you want to call it that. He's a Hawaiian coach, so I think that's kind of funny, the Mormon Islands. Anyways, side joke. But I have them taking the loss to you guys. You win at 28-24 away on the road, saving your season yet again. I think that they are going to have an off game, and I think you guys are going to show up on this game and end up winning that game on the road against BYU. The very next week, though, is a tough game against Texas. Nobody likes the Texas Longhorns, right? Am I right? Anyone? Okay. Nobody likes the Texas Longhorns, but I do think I'm going to be buying stock for Texas this year. It's just a matter of time before they become successful again and kind of reach that pinnacle of the college sports where they probably really do belong. And I just think their offense is going to take huge steps forward under Sarkisian. I think he's the right coach for the job, though many people have said other people are the right coach for that job too, right? However, I think he does get it done this year. That offense is going to play really well. I also have here that you guys are going to struggle against kind of a tough Texas defense, and I think they're going to be improved on defense too. This is not going to be a very close game, unfortunately, for you guys, and you do drop this game, losing it 38-20. Now, you're on a must-win situation here in Week 12. It's an away game at Kansas State. I think Kansas State has been improving quite significantly over the last couple of years. More specifically this last year, you've seen the type of success they had with their new coach that they had hired. They went really deep, played in that Big 12 championship game, and found a lot of success in it. I just think that Kansas State's just a little bit more balanced than you guys, and I think their trajectory is showing a little bit more right now. and I have you guys unfortunately losing that game and just missing that bowl eligibility. So you end up losing that last game. You're 5-7 on the year, unfortunately. And I think at this point you kind of take a look in the mirror and say, hey, what do we want to do with the future of our program? Do we want to keep riding on Matt Campbell and just hoping that he can get us over that hill, that he keeps hitting that hump on 5-6 wins, 6-7 wins, 7-8 wins? Is he going to get the type of talent that he had with Breece Hall? Is he going to get the type of talent that he had with Brock Purdy? Is he going to strike lucky and hit that gold and find that jackpot? I don't know if he's going to do it. And after this year, after the previous year in 2022 with a 4-8 record, and then following up with a 5-7 record, losing 2 in a row, I don't know what you do moving forward. But in my opinion, I'd be looking at finding a new coach potentially and seeing what else is on the market. Now, is Iowa State going to do that? I don't know. Just something that I would probably do. So, anyways, with that being said, again, I'm Brando with Brando Sports World. I appreciate you guys so much tuning in, following me on this journey from number 50 down to number 1 of the top 50 college football teams of the 2023 football season. So go ahead and please hit like, please subscribe and comment if you want to discuss a little bit more about some different teams. We got some more videos coming up for you here over the next month. Right before season starts, we're going to make it all the way to number 1. So anyways, tune in, guys, and we'll catch you later.